This is all things critique, how to not make people cry. So anyway, like I said earlier, I'm Makayla. I'm the current contest chair for the League of Utah Writers. I love the League of Utah Writers. I'm grateful that they have put on this event so that we can learn about writing together. I write novels and short stories. I've got a handful of short stories published. They're on my website. They're all free, so have at it. I have a novel coming out at the end of the year with Jumpmaster Press. It's a YA dystopian novel. It's fun. So anyway, the only reason I'm qualified to teach this class is because I don't think I made someone cry critiquing them. And I have co-written 3 books. So I do a lot of collaborating. Collaborating in writing is really important to me. I think it's how you grow. So anyway, without further ado, we will get started. So have you ever heard the saying that writing is a lonely endeavor? People always say that writing is a really lonely thing, and I don't think it has to be. There are so many ways that you can find companionship in writing, either in person or online. And I'm just going to hit a couple of these ways really quick. This is a beginning writing class, and so if you are a really seasoned writer, you'll be familiar with these terms. But if not, I'll break things down a little bit. So a critique partner, or a CP, is another writer with whom you exchange your manuscript, chapters, scenes, or whatever you've written. You critique their work, and in turn, they critique yours. There are writing groups. A writing group is any group of writers that get together for a shared purpose. Not all writing groups look the same. Celebrate Writers has their own method they use called tri-tip, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so they give 3 tips on writing, and then you chat and you eat and you network. There are some where these writing groups kind of overlap with their purpose, with overlap in purpose with critiquing. So you submit something to the whole group and you come back with critiques from different people in that group. It could just be that you go and you read them and you only share the things that you loved. It just, whatever that group of people decides. That's one way to do that. And then there are also collaborative projects. It's a process of producing a written work as a group or a duo or a trio or whoever's in that group, where you all contribute to the content and the decision making. So it's not just one person writing it, it's not just one person calling the shots, it's a collaborative effort. You all own it together. An example of this is co-authoring. The books I've written with co-authors, I have 2 different co-authors that I write with. They are vastly different processes. And for different projects, even with the same co-author, we have different processes. I have one series right now where I draft the whole thing and my co-author goes in and she adds her take and cuts or does whatever, So we've got that. We also I've got one co-author where we touch every single word of every single sentence, and it's a mess, total mess, and it comes together and it's beautiful. And then we have some where it's like, I'm gonna write a chunk, and when I can't see the scene anymore, you're gonna take it over. So collaboration can look any way you want it to. It can look whatever way works for you and whoever you're working with. Conferences are collaborative. The Pre-Quill conference, in particular, it's affordable and it's educational and it's for beginning writers. That's kind of their purpose for this particular conference. But different conferences have different goals. It's often, education and networking based. And conferences are a great way to meet people who share your love of writing. There's also social media. There are active writing communities on every social media platform. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Reddit, whatever speaks to you. There's kind of different groups of people. I feel like with social media, it takes a minute to kind of curate your people. You could hop on Threads and this place is scary. Or you could hop on and be like, oh, hey, I found the cozy fantasy writers and they're all sunshine and rainbows and it's great. But it just depends on who you're looking for and what you're looking for. But it's a great way to find your writing people. The main focus of this presentation, in terms of collaboration, is specifically critique partners, although some of those things I just touched on, I'll kind of mention throughout as well. Okay, sorry about that. So I think one thing that's really important to remember when you're thinking about collaboration and critique is that there is a difference between the two. Critiquing and collaborating take different approaches. It's important to understand the similarities and differences so that you can be a good critique partner. So with collaboration, you are working together on a piece. It's both yours and theirs. There's a lot of give and take, and it can take many forms, as we talked about earlier. And with critiquing, there's not that give and take there. It's like, I'm giving you my thing for your feedback, and then I go and I fix it. I'm not giving it to you for you to fix. So that's important. We want to, when we're exchanging for critique, you want to keep the writer's vision and their voice. You are just there to give feedback on things that are like confusing or problematic or boring or cliche or overwrought or whatever the problem that you think it is, or whatever you're seeing that they might not be. You give that feedback. You're not trying to fix it or make it your own. So one really important thing on that same note, if you try to take a collaboration approach to critiquing, it's going to lead to negative reactions from the person that you are critiquing for. So if you're saying, if someone gives you their story, and you say, well, I don't really like that the character did this, so I think you need to make them do X, Y, and Z. Well, it's their piece, and in their piece, maybe they want that person to do X, Y, and Z. Now, if there's a problem that's like, well, if they do X, Y, and Z, it comes off as this. Is that what you intended? Ask questions, and don't try to say, well, you can't do whatever. They can do whatever. It's their story, right? So you just want to make sure that you're asking questions and trying to get to the root of what they want for that piece and help them to make that vision come true. Now, this next question here, I would love feedback. That's one thing I should have said at the beginning. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, whatever throughout this presentation, please chat. We'll have a discussion during the presentation. You don't have to wait till the end. So, but one question that I have is, when do you feel like you should seek out a critique partner? I have my experience, but I don't know if that experience will be true for you or for anyone else. So if you have had experience with critique partners that you feel like would be valuable, by all means, please share. But when you're trying to seek out a critique partner in terms of like, when do I actually do that? One thing that helped me was first recognizing that you have to have something to give someone else for critique. So you have to have something written, whether it's a chapter or a whole book or whatever, that's totally up to you. But you have to have something to physically give someone to get feedback on. I found that it was helpful pretty early on in the process. So when I had written my first novel, I had 6 chapters. And I was like, I just had a question that I was kind of stuck on. And I ended up finding a critique partner, and we submitted chapters to each other once a week. And I only had 6 chapters, and so it motivated me to kind of get the project done quickly. But it helped at that point to have a critique partner to see like what's working and what do I want to carry throughout my story. For someone else might be like, that is way too early. That's your process, and you can do it however you want. Yes?
How did you find that critique partner and know that you could trust their feedback?
Yeah, thanks. So the question was, how did I find that critique partner, and how did I know that I could trust their feedback? So, and I'll talk about this a little later, but I found this critique partner through social media, actually, back when those Instagram challenges were cool. We had both done the same little Instagram challenge, and we connected over things that weren't writing. We were both young moms, anyway, so we connected over those things, and we both knew that we were writers, but as we became friends kind of organically about other things, it kind of bled into writing, and do you want to read my stuff? Would you mind reading my stuff? And once you kind of get in the groove of like, okay, this is the kind of feedback I can expect from that person, then you can kind of decide if you want to move forward, and it happened to be a great fit. So to answer your question, I think the process of kind of trying out that person a little bit and not feeling like, oh my gosh, if I give them this one chapter, I've got to go through the whole book. You certainly don't have to. And we'll talk about that a little bit later too, and how to gracefully step back if it isn't the right fit as well. But thanks for your question. Do you have any other thoughts or comments about when to find a critique partner? We're in the process. Okay, yeah.
When do you feel like you need to? Or when you have a full draft? Or a couple times that are pretty typical. Or if you want to join a critique group, like join the league and join a chapter, sometimes you can find people there. Or you can find people that at least talk about things and get advice there.
Great, thank you. So Ryan had said, when you feel like you need to, which is perfect, and if you have a full draft, those are kind of typical times, and I think I'd agree with that. Thank you.
I was just going to say too that can't you get a critique without it being a partner? Like he was saying that you could submit it to your writing group, or where it's not necessarily an agreement that you're meeting regularly, but you still get the meaningful critique.
Yes. So we had asked, the question was, does it have to be a partnership, or can it just be like, you're submitting it to your writing group, or to someone who's not like a typical like, we have an agreement and we're going to do this? Absolutely. And for the purposes of this class, it's the partnership, but you can absolutely send it to whoever you feel like would be beneficial for your piece. Yes.
The Just Right chapter is online, so every 2 weeks you have all these different papers that come in, and you critique all these different people in your group.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's only 3,000 words.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, so there are different groups that kind of function in different ways, where they send in, a certain number of words, or a certain, only a chapter or whatever, and you critique that way. It can look any way that you want it to, any way that works for you. There are certain things I send my mom. I would not consider my mom a critique partner, but she has good feedback for certain things that I write. So, I think it's, you find the people that help you and will help your writing to be better. So, thank you. Now, we're going to chat about benefits of having a critique partner, and there are lots, but I'll just hit a few here. One, increased productivity and more fun. So you always, if you have a critique partner, it's generally someone that you enjoy talking to. You enjoy their feedback. You enjoy their time. So it's someone who you are excited to share your work with, and they are excited for you. They're excited for your success, and they also help with motivation. So you have motivation to actually complete what you want to complete because you need to have something to exchange. One thing that I think is super fun, I have these two co-authors, and they're also critique partners for me. And one thing that we do kind of regularly is writing sprints. You guys ever done writing sprints? Yeah. So there's a website called O-Write, O-H, and then W-R-I-T-E. It's super fun. So someone will create a room, it's also free, but someone will create a room on O-Write, and you can all get into the same room, and you can see each other's word count. So you can't see what they're actually writing, you can't see their words, but you can see their word count. And so as you type, you can sprint, and you can kind of make it a competition if you want to see who can write the most words or whatever. So having a critique partner is fun because there's that extra motivation. You don't need to have a specific critique partner to do this, but that's who I do it with, and so added it here in case that sounds fun to you. If you want a sprinting buddy, shoot me an email. I will gladly add you to the room. You can come sprint with me and Trenna. So the next benefit of having a critique partner, varied perspectives and new ideas. When you have a critique partner, they are part of your writing network. They're a part of your writing network, but they're like more than that. They're intimately familiar with your work, and they're better able to help you find opportunities that fit you. They're also kind of better attuned to, like if I write something, and they're like, that doesn't really sound like I think you want it to sound. It's hard for someone who doesn't know you or know your writing well to be able to say that. So to have someone that is so intimately connected with you and your writing can sometimes be helpful. It also has its drawbacks. That's why it's fun to have a, cast a wide net and have more writing friends if you can. Anyway, they are also helpful because they know your work so well. Can help you find opportunities that are a good fit, whether it's conventions, things that fit your genre. For example, like I write fantasy and science fiction, so LTUE is my jam. I like LTUE a lot, but I wouldn't have known about LTUE if it wasn't for a friend. So just having those people that are familiar with your work and can tell you, hey, I think you'd really enjoy that. I think that'd be beneficial for you. They can also talk to you about publishers or agents that might be a good fit for you. Or if you're a short story writer, journals, anthologies, magazines, those sort of things. I have a friend that if she sees something that looks like it'd be a fit for one of my stories I've written and she's read, she's like, hey, I think this would be great for your troll story. All right, thank you. They can also, because they are so familiar, they can help you recognize blind spots in your piece. Even just a critique partner in general, someone that you're newly working with can help you with this. But recognizing blind spots in your piece, pacing, superfluous characters or words, unclear phrasing, lack of description, too much description, anything in your story that's like, oh, that's not quite right, that you might be too close to the piece to actually see that. They can have a better eye. Another benefit is improved relationships, sense of community, and it is less isolating. Because as we talked about, there is that stigma with writing where it's like, that is a solo endeavor. Like, you do it on your own, at your computer, and that's it. And that can feel isolating to some people, but it doesn't have to be that way. Critique partners can be a support when you need it. How many of you have been rejected in some form about your writing? Yes, most of us have. If you've submitted somewhere, likelihood is you've been rejected. I've been rejected tons of times. Have you guys heard of the 100 Rejections Challenge? Okay, the 100 Rejections Challenge is really fun. I'm actually doing it right now. I'm up to almost 50 rejections. I'm at like 49, so I'm gonna throw a party when I get this 50th, right? So what it does is you submit, you write and you write and you write, and you submit and submit and submit, and you just try to get to 100 rejections. But what I've found is that I've gotten way more acceptances as well. So then I'm like, oh no, I have to write another short story. Great. So it's a really fun way to kind of desensitize yourself to the rejection, and also hopefully get a couple of things put out there. But my critique partner is doing this with me, and so whenever we get rejections, we text each other, and it's like, yeah, another rejection for the checklist, So anyway, that was just an aside, but it is fun if you look it up. 100 Rejections Challenge is fun. So they can also help you when you're stuck on your manuscript or have writer's block. A couple of my friends will send each other little GIFs, those little moving images of someone kicking something, where it's like, give them a kick, let's do it. So they can help motivate you to keep going and keep writing when you need that. Thicker writing skin. Good critique partners can also turn into lifelong friends. So, it's not just about the writing, but you know about each other's lives, and you help each other through the other things too. And writing is just kind of a way to facilitate that relationship and kind of keep you together. It's also a good person to go to conferences with. So if you have a good friend, bring him here. Bring him to a conference. Solidify that relationship and keep writing. Another benefit is having innovative solutions and more efficient problem solving. Brainstorming. Brainstorming by yourself is great, but I don't personally use AI, but there's a reason why AI is so popular in the writing realm, because it is an easy way to shoot off and get feedback. You can also do this with a critique partner, which I would recommend. It sometimes helps to be able to talk things out with someone else. Get those ideas out of your head, have someone else to bounce things off of. They also are coming from a totally different spot than you. They have a completely different backstory, a completely different life, and they see things differently. And so when they're reading your stuff, you might not see something as problematic or cliche or any of those things, but they listen to different music, they read different books, they watch different movies, they interact with different people, they have different jobs, and all of those things can color a piece and color the way that a reader reads a piece. So having someone else to problem solve with and brainstorm with can be helpful. It can also help you get out of those sticky spots too, where you're like, I backed myself into a corner and I have no idea how to fix this. And you're like, oh, well, it's easy if you just open a portal over there. And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of a portal, whatever. Something that can just help you to get out of that stuck spot. A fifth benefit is feedback. With a critique partner, you can get kind of more immediate feedback, at least in my experience. It depends on your partnership, I suppose. But if you were sending your completed manuscript to a beta reader, that would take a minute to get back. And they're also looking for different things. But if you were sending it to a beta reader, it would typically take longer than if I sent my full book to one of my critique partners. It's probably a little higher on their list because we do have that close relationship. They also are probably a little more familiar with what's going on and a little more invested. So getting that back sooner is probably a little higher on their list. You can also send them smaller chunks of things. So if I'm like, oh, this paragraph is really not working for me, I can text that over to one of my friends, or where it's just like, okay, I can get out of that stuck spot a little faster because I have someone that I can't just shoot it off too quickly. And honest feedback. This one I feel like is hard if you don't, like you'd said earlier, if you don't really know the person super well, like how do you know you can trust their feedback? Honest feedback is important, and it's hard to know if you haven't worked with that person kind of regularly and pretty frequently. But when you do have a good critique partner, that honest feedback is great. Because one, you know them well enough that they're not trying to hurt your feelings. They want your piece to be better. And so I think that partnership there is really important. They can tell you how well your piece is connecting with readers. It's like, well, I liked the premise, but the character isn't really relatable. They can say those things to you, and it's not like, oh no, they don't like me. Or, it's because this person is your friend, and they know you, and they know your writing. They can also give advice as a fellow writer versus a beta reader who's coming from a reader's point of view. So now that we've talked about all these benefits, that's really great. But where are we supposed to find this unicorn of a person who will give us honest, helpful feedback and be a friend? Let's see. There are different things to look for. Before you go and search out this awesome person, this unicorn, there are some specific things that we want to look for. And this will look different for everyone. And so I wanted to kind of write down some things that I think are universal in a critique partner. And if anyone has any thoughts, anything to add to this list that we feel like, okay, anyone who's looking for a critique partner, no matter what genre, no matter whatever, if it feels applicable to any partnership, let me know. But the ones that I had written down is that they regularly read and like your genre. If they don't read, they don't like your genre. 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 They don't read, they don't like your genre or like your genre, they're probably not going to give the kind of feedback that you need to make your piece better. They also need to not be biased against the tropes you're using. So if you're like, this story has a love triangle in it, and they're like, I hate love triangles. Well, that might not be the best person to give feedback on your book. Unless they can say like, okay, I really don't like love triangles, but I can set that aside and still give you the feedback you need. If you know that person well enough and you feel like that's great, then that's great. So I guess this isn't necessarily universal, but you know, I think that it is important to have thought that out at least. So does anyone else have thoughts about things that are universal when you're looking for a critique partner? Yeah.
Go ahead.
It sounds like finding a critique partner is a lot like the dating process. It's like
Yes.
finding someone with similar interests who wants to help you be a better you. It's like, and that can sometimes be a really difficult process, you know, so I'm seeing a lot of similarities there.
Right, so the comment was, finding a critique partner seems a lot like the dating process. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with that in over 10 years, and I hope never to have to again. But I think that's kind of true, where you're trying to find someone that fits what you need. And I think one thing that, like I said, we will talk about is how to kind of test that out and step back gracefully if it's not what you need. Don't feel like you need to be stuck in a situation that doesn't work for you or doesn't work for them. So, thank you. Any other thoughts there? Yeah.
I have 3 thoughts. One of them is, a lot of times it's helpful if it's a give and take. So if you have someone, you give them stuff and they give you stuff. Another thing is the time frame. And I think the communication between you needs to be open. You need to be able to say, okay, I think you have to be able to say, okay, I need this by this date, or have some kind of an expectation, or even a contract if you wanted to go that far, to say, you know, if I give you something, you know, you generally have a week unless we discuss it otherwise, and you know, there's a thing. But as a general rule, you know, get it back to us within a week, and also have set expectations of what kind of things you want critiqued on. So one of the classes I went to said that don't go in and correct their writing. Go in and say, I was confused at this point. I was pulled out of the story by this. And then let them go back and correct it, because they just need help seeing where the problem is and the general idea. Because a lot of times if you go in and say, oh, you need to say this word instead of this word, that's not helpful. That's passive aggressive.
Right. So the comment was wonderful, and I think Ryan probably should have just taught this class. I do have a lot of those things coming up that we'll go a little more in detail on. No, this is perfect. It's kind of a good segue, but basically setting expectations. You need to be able to have open communication with a critique partner and be able to set expectations, which we will get to pretty quick here. But on to what Robert had asked earlier, how do you actually find a critique partner? There are tons and tons of ways that you can find a critique partner, but these are just a few that I've had from my experience and ways that I think are applicable to most people. So first of all, it starts with your attitude. You want to be confident and stay positive, because it's not often the universe is just going to drop a critique partner in your lap. I'm not saying it's not possible, that'd be great, but oftentimes we do have to seek that out. And the worst that someone could say is no. So it's okay to put yourself out there, stay positive even if it doesn't work out the first time. Keep going. But one way is writing groups, which has been mentioned here before. One of my co-authors, my husband's best friend growing up, married this lovely girl who had started up a writing group on Facebook, and she lives in a different state. And I was like, sure, you know, new writing. I'd never been in a writing group before, and I had hopped on, and it ended up, I didn't stay in the writing group long, but since then, and this was a few years ago, I have gotten a co-author out of it and a really good friend. And I've beta read for multiple of the girls in those groups. So it's been really great. Writing groups are a fantastic way. Reach out, see how you can help other people, and they'll often want to help you out as well. Another way is conferences, and you're already here, so you guys are already one step closer to finding that critique partner. But I have a friend that I met at a writing conference that doesn't write my genre at all, but I had one story that was borderline on horror, and she wrote horror, and I was like, I really don't have a friend I could send that to. And so I sent it to her and got some really great feedback. And although we don't write the same genre, we have writing conversations, and we do help each other, and we do send each other submission calls for short stories and things. So just having those people you can go to when you need it is lovely. Branch out a little bit there. I had mentioned earlier social media. I won't go into that again, but we kind of touched on that. Ryan had mentioned League of Utah Writers. There are chapters across the state. If there's not one near you, make one. Ryan can chat with you about being a chapter leader. You can also volunteer. There are things, once again, all across the state that you can join and volunteer with. But if you want to volunteer with League of Utah Writers, there is a volunteer section on their website. I'm the chair of the contest committee. If you want to work in contests, shoot me an email. Let's chat about that. We'd love to have you. There are so many places you can find critique partners. I mean, you could sit down in a coffee shop and see that someone else has their laptop open and say, hi, what are you working on? And, if they're like, I am working, then you don't have to bother them, but, just try as you're out and about to find those connections and find those people that you do connect with. So now, what we have all come here for today, how to not make people cry. Okay, here we go. So how do we we've talked about how we find these critique partners. Now we want to keep them. We need to be flexible and courteous. And like we've talked about before, each companionship works a little differently, and it will take time to figure out how your companionship works together in a way that you both benefit. Examples, this could look like if you don't live that close together, like I have one co-author in Kentucky and one in Montana, and we make it work. We use Marco Polo or video calls instead of meeting in person, but you could also meet in person if you happen to be lucky and have your critique partners near you. When schedules don't line up, that is another way where Marco Polo is beautiful, because you can, if you aren't familiar with Marco Polo, it's an app where you can send a video and they can watch it later, and it keeps all your videos on one neat little place, so you can go back and you can also, if you had a great brainstorming session, you can't remember a word of what you talked about, go back and re-listen to it. So Marco Polo is a great one. You can have set meetings, so it's like, okay, we are going to connect once a week about this, or once a day, or once a month, or whatever it is that you need. You can use Google Docs. It works across PC or Mac or whatever. It allows for easy access to documents, and you can see suggestions and comments really clearly. If nothing is working, or if you have something set and you're like, this has been great for 2 years and now it's really not working, don't be afraid to try a different app or writing program or way of communicating. It can kind of be an evolving thing for schedules and life changes and whatever it is. So just being flexible and courteous is really important. Number 2, being clear about your expectations. There are lots of pieces of advice that are given to people who are critiquing. I'll give a little bit of advice. If it doesn't resonate with you, don't take it. Do what works for you, and what works for the people that you are critiquing. But I'll try to give a little bit, even though there's no real one size fits all for feedback. But ultimately, you know yourself, and you know your writing. You know if you have the thick writing skin or not. So if the kind of feedback that you want and can handle is something specific, just tell them. Be very upfront about what you can handle, and what you actually want. And alternatively, if a critique partner, if you are the person critiquing, you should be aware of what that person can handle. So if they didn't straight up say, you know, I really just need some positivity on this piece before we really dive into it. You can ask, you know, what do you need here? Instead of just, you know, getting right into it, and it's like, oh, but I was really nervous about this one. You know, you be upfront, and you can ask and say, how are you feeling about this? What do you need? And be able to help them in the way that they actually need. So we want to be clear about the kind of feedback that we want, and we also can consider, if we don't actually know what we need, you can say that too. So maybe they could give a different variety, or it's just, you know, try your best to be communicative with these things. You can consider giving your critique partner specific questions to answer. Where it's like, on this piece, you know, I'm comfortable with the wording and the phrasing, but does the plot work? You know, things like that. Just give them that extra, those specific questions there. You can ask for reactions as they read. You know, like, I'm really aiming for them to cry, but are they even sad? You know, like asking them specific reactions. One of my co-authors, she asks us to note if things were boring or confusing, didn't feel consistent or believable, they were awesome and you loved it, or something that made you question or threw you out of the story. So she kind of gives like a, you know, put it in this category kind of a thing. And that helps too if you're like, oh, I don't even know where to put that thought. You know, it kind of helps you to categorize. Talking about expectations, deadlines, like Brian had mentioned. Their schedule doesn't revolve around you and your piece, and your schedule doesn't revolve around theirs. So be clear about your timelines. Like, I really need this by next week. If you can't do that, totally fine, I'll find someone else, you know. And always be appreciative for the time that they are able to share with you in your writing. Know what you're looking for when you're critiquing something. So if you are uncomfortable with certain genres or spice levels or lengths of a story or an excerpt, be upfront about that. Because it's uncomfortable for you, and it's also uncomfortable for them if you get into it and you're like, oh no. Not to say that if you do get through something and are uncomfortable that you can't say, oh no. You should. But it's better upfront to say, you know, this is what I'm okay with. So that way you're not in that situation. It's also okay to try something out and realize that it's not a good fit. You don't need to waste your time on writing that you're uncomfortable with and that you can't critique well. Because you also don't want to give them feedback that you're like, what? Like, this isn't useful or helpful at all. So you can be honest and kind about needing to step away from the piece, but not from the person. You know, so you can say, oh, I don't know if I'm the best person for this, but if you have something that's sci-fi or fantasy, I would love to help you out. Just being kind, being upfront, and letting them know that, like, you are valued as a person and a writer, but I might not be the best fit for this particular piece. Yeah.
How do you gracefully break up with a critique partner if you feel like it's not working out?
Yeah, so to continue with the dating reference, how do we break up with someone who maybe isn't the best critique partner for you? And I think, you know, just like I said, being very, just be very kind and graceful about it. I think if you are in person, often that feels harder. So if it is, you know, you're sending your work usually over email or over Google Docs or whatever, and so you could, when you send it back, you can say, I'm not sure I'm the best fit for this. If you have something else that you think I would be a fit for, I'd be willing to try it. Or if it was such a bad experience and it's not something that you think you should continue with, just say, thank you so much for your time and for letting me see your work. I'm not the best fit for this, but best of luck, you know. And so just, there's a place for everyone's writing, even if that's not in the published world, but there are reasons that people write, and we don't want to be the reason that person stops doing that, if that's something they need in their life. So always making sure that whatever you're saying to someone else from a critiquing point of view is not going to damage their love of writing. Yes?
Thinking about this, do you think that it's mostly beginning writers who benefit or seek out critique partners, and that the more seasoned writers just sort of, I mean, because I've talked to, or I've asked this question to other published authors, a keynote speaker actually, and he said he doesn't use a critique partner anymore. He just, uses an editor, like a line editor that he's worked with, because he's comfortable now with his style, and his readers expect a certain type of product from him, and maybe he's just used to moving on his own.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the question was, do you think that critique partners are just for beginning writers, or do you think seasoned writers can benefit as well? Yeah.
I remember one author who said, I only write the draft once, and I send it in. He didn't even do any editing of his thing. He figured it was perfect the first time he wrote it. I'm just telling you what he said. He said it on public TV.
So we had a comment that some there's an author that had said, I just write it and I send it in. I think for most of us that would probably not work out.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I think that even if people don't call it a critique partner, generally people have other people that look at their writing and do give feedback. For me, it's not really possible right now to have to pay someone to do that, and so I have people that we both benefit from the partnership in order to get my work where I think it should be in order to submit. I think seasoned writers do benefit from this. For example, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were in a writing group together. They looked at each other's work, I think that it's beneficial to collaborate, and it's beneficial to have other people look at things. Now, if you are absolutely a solitary, like writing is a solo endeavor, that is your process, and if that is what works for you, go for it. But a lot of us do kind of seek that out. And if that's something you need and something you look for and something that benefits your writing, then you can use it at any stage of your writing career, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think that further into that, I think that a lot of the, so as you're a beginner, you're trying to find that perfect critique or whatever. And, and that author that just sends it to the editor, that editor is their critique partner, right? That's what it is. But, and same with that other guy who just sends it in.
But I saw his published book. I read
Yeah,
it.
but it went through
I was
edits, I
unimpressed.
will guarantee you that. It went through edits with his editor.
Yeah.
But a lot of the more established writers have found those people or that critique group. I know Brandon Sanderson has a critique group that he works with, and it may not be, oh, here's my chapter this month. It's more like probably, hey, I'm having trouble here. I'm sending you this 2 chapters. Tell me what you think. And it changes the type of relationship and how they help each other. But I have another friend who she has her 4 people. They just get together and they're all established. They're all, and so you got to find your group and your people, and it will change. And everybody's a little different. But yeah, you find it. It's out there. But that's why you don't hear about it when they're established, is because they found their group and they're together.
Yeah, so that was a great comment. Basically, the more seasoned writers have found what works for them, and so you don't hear about it as much because I think it's probably hard to replicate. It's like, well, I found these 4 people in vastly different ways, and we all work together in a very specific way, and I'm not going to tell you exactly how that is because you can't replicate that. So here, it's more of just, if you are starting out and you are looking for your people, these are some things you can take with you to help you as you start out and try to grow that group. So, the next, how to not make people cry. Be aware of your critique partner's goals. One, do they have the same goals as you? Are you trying to, or are you just writing for fun? Are you writing for posterity? Are you writing to get publish traditionally? Are you self-publishing? What is your goal with writing? It's not necessary that your critique partner has the same goals as you. But I think it's important to know what their goals are so that you can tailor your feedback to help them reach those goals. I also think it's important to remember that there is not a goal that is better than another. If one person self-publishes and one person is traditionally published, one is not better than the other. If one person is writing a book for their grandchildren, that is important, that is valid, that is something that you should encourage and help them with. So just know what their goals are so that you can help them reach the goal that they have set, not the one that you think they ought to do or you think they had the potential to do or whatever. Yeah.
Sorry, I just had an idea on how to break up with your person.
Okay.
One of the things you can do, and this has to be set up ahead of time, is to, in your contract or in your expectations right at the beginning, is you have like a quarterly meeting, and at each quarterly meeting, you can just say, okay, now is the question, are we gonna keep doing this for the next 3 months, or are we done? And you can just say, I think we're done.
Yeah, so
And
this
just set it up so that every 3 months you bring it up, and then it's not as painful, it's, okay,
That's
this
great.
month we're done.
Yeah, so this comment was great. Going back to breaking up if the partnership isn't working for you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so if you set in your expectations at the beginning, where, you know, is there a time that we can bring back like how this is going, and have that conversation every once in a while. It says, okay, yeah, we're both still benefiting from this, or no, I'm kind of feeling like we need to change something, or no, I think this ought to be the end of it. That way you kind of know that conversation comes up and there is a conversation that isn't just out of the blue. That can be really helpful. Yeah, thank you for that.
But yeah, address those other things, like say, yeah, it's been great, but I'd like to see this different, and then you can prevent it from ending and change the relationship as you go.
That's perfect. Let it be an evolving relationship. I like that.
Yeah.
One other thing is you want to make sure that you get what you give, right? So if you are just giving them your work and you're not actually being helpful back, this has turned into a high school group project where one person is doing all the work and everyone else is benefiting from it, right? You don't want to be that person. No one wants to be that person, and no one wants to have to deal with any of that. So make sure that if someone is helping you out, you help them out too. Make the partnership work for everybody. Now, taking criticism. How is you being able to take criticism not going to make someone else cry? All right, let's talk about it. So, it can be tough and uncomfortable to give someone your work. This is something you've worked a long time on. You've kind of poured your heart and soul into it. I think it's important to let them share what they have to say and not be defensive. So if you need to button your lips and sit on your hands so that you are not interrupting them and you let them say what they need to say, then you do that. It's important to let other people say their piece. But remember that even though they're saying all these things and you disagree with everything that they say, hopefully that's not how your partnership is going, but if it is, you do not have to take every single piece of advice or suggestion that they give. Yes.
Don't write back in the middle of the night. You know, whole different attitude than you do during the day.
That's right. The comment was, don't write back in the middle of the night. You sleep on it. You're a whole different person when it's not midnight and you've been stewing over it for 3 hours, right? So if you don't have to take every piece of advice, you don't even have to take most of it. If you aren't taking any of it, this is probably not a partnership that you need. Now how to decide which pieces of advice to take and which to discard. One, I think it's important to trust your gut. So from the onset, if they are like, this is the worst thing I've ever read, and you think, I like it. and then you think, oh no, but maybe it is that. No, your first thought was, I like it. You know? So hold on to that. Keep that thought. And trust your gut a little bit there. Now, if you're listening to it and your first thought is, they are wrong. They are wrong, they are wrong, they are wrong. They might not be wrong. You might be a little defensive about that. And this is what you said earlier, where you have to give it a minute. And if after a minute, or a day, or a week, you think, oh, they might have been right about that. And then you can kind of take what they said in more digestible chunks and see what works for you. Yeah.
Let's say you have multiple critique partners. You like to bounce ideas off of multiple people, and they're giving you completely different feedback. How do you navigate that?
The question was, how do you navigate when you have multiple partners and multiple people that you have sent something to and you are getting contradicting feedback? I think this happens all the time. I think it happens all the time. And one, like we said before, people are coming from different backgrounds. They are coming from different, I mean, if I was hungry and I read your thing, and I might have been a little more mean on it than someone else, you know? If you're getting a ton of, oh, thank you. But if you're getting all of these contradicting things, I would say if there's something that is more prevalent, like if you sent it to 5 people and 3 of them said the same thing, that's probably something that you could try to work out, try to fix or change or move around to make it fit the need. If it's something that all 5 people have very different takes, maybe let that be for a minute. You can think about it. If you think that it's really truly a problem, you change it. If you're like, this is 5 different people and I don't know, maybe if there's someone in that group that you're like, I really trust this one person, talk to them about it, or this is my favorite one, ask deeper questions. So if you're getting to this spot, you're like, that's obviously a problem spot, talk to those people and ask them those deeper questions and try to understand, okay, I know you're all feeling weird about this spot, but why? Try to get down to the root of it, and really discover, okay, what is the problem with this scene or this character or whatever it is. So, yeah.
I thought it's been handy also to have a computer play it back in audio format to you, so you listen to it. It's different than trying to read it sometimes.
That's great. So having, the comment was, if you have something read back to you or you read it out loud to yourself, being able to kind of find things you might not have seen if you were just reading it. Yes, thank you for that. Other things to ask yourself, do you feel like the comment is trying to make the piece better? Keep that in mind. Do you trust the person's writing judgment who gave the comment? Is their writing style or writing something that you enjoy reading and something that you aspire to? Or do you feel like the change is kind of coming from a place that wouldn't help your piece? If the answer is no, you can't trust their writing judgment, their writing doesn't resonate with you, you don't feel like their suggestions are helpful, and they aren't familiar with your genre, etc., probably not the advice you take and probably not the person you send your book to. If yes, then consider the comment. Maybe test it out. Discard it if it doesn't work. Ultimately, this is your piece. So you do with it what you feel like you need to do. Okay, continuing with how to actually critique something. Once you've set your clear expectations and you guys are ready to exchange your work, let's see. Just a moment, sorry about that. Oh, this is something I think is really important. You don't have to be too nice. It doesn't help anyone grow. So if you have this piece and you're like, oh, this one's toughy, and you just tell them, it was great, perfect, no notes, because you're uncomfortable with having to say something negative, it doesn't help them grow as a writer, and it doesn't help their piece. So you can say things that are negative, but just make sure that it's in a kind way. One way to do this is the sandwich method. You guys heard of the sandwich method, where you start with a positive, and then you give them a negative, and then you go with a positive. So it's not like, wow, I just really disliked this piece. No, it's, well, I really thought this character was great, but I thought you could work on whatever. And then you got me back again when you did this. And now if you really were like, this is the worst thing I've actually ever read, try to find something, even if it just reminded you of something that you liked. Try to give something positive. We are running out of time, so I'm gonna leave on just one last important note here. Whether you are critiquing or collaborating, online or in person, flash fiction, novel, whatever you are critiquing, make sure that you are always being kind. We want to make sure that we are building people up. We want to support people with their writing the way that you would want to be supported. So thank you guys for being here today and for coming to this class. I'm Makayla. I've got the slides for you if you want them. If you want to shoot me an email or go to my website and contact me through the form. I've got also for this class specifically, I've got a free story for you too. That was co-written with one of my co-authors. So
say the email will be in the chat.
yes, the email and the website we'll put in the chat for you. I also have a specific landing page where you can get the short story. I've got a QR code and stuff. So anyway, thank you guys.